Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Kayla Bruce on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Florida, which even saying that is making me just upset because dealing with the Minnesota weather that we have right now and knowing that in Florida, the worst thing you're ever going to get is probably, like 40 degrees at the least. And, that's unfair, but hey, life's unfair. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Kayla, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me.
Well, I gotta ask off first of all, because I love torturing myself. What is the weather like in Florida today?
Actually, we just had a cold front come through yesterday. It's 57 degrees outside.
Cold front, as the Floridians like. Yeah, it's currently 7 degrees here in Minnesota, so I'd swap. Hey, I'd swap your cold front with ours, but no, I love that. I mean, I hate having guests on from the south this time of year, but hey, it gives me something to hope for, and I hope that like some of the vibes of talking to someone from Florida, maybe I'll start to feel a little bit warmer myself, but. Who knows? It hasn't worked out yet, but I'm still holding out hope. But before I depress the entire audience with all that stuff, because no one wants to hear about my winter weather woes because they're not good. Why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to, bodybuilding and where you're at currently?
Okay. I was a weightlifter in high school, but I was a bigger kid. I was always really heavy my whole childhood. Uh, I graduated high school 2011, and I was pushing 200 pounds. And I only stand at 5'1", so that's pretty big.
Just
And
just just for reference, everyone, I'm 6'3" and 210 pounds. So, that's if she's almost pushing, yeah, just that's to give everyone a little reference there.
Yeah, and it was all body fat. Like I wasn't muscular really. And I ended up having lower back surgery in 2012, and I also had a tumor removed in December of 2012 from above my kidney, and I gained another like 20, 30 pounds. So I was sitting at close to the 220s, and I was in very poor health. I Before the surgeries, they wanted to put me on blood pressure medications, and my resting heart rate was like at 100, and I had to monitor my heart rate for and my blood pressure for weeks before I could even have the surgery, so they could make sure that they could control it just in case something bad happened. Uh, so after that, like I kind of sat around, felt sorry for myself for a few months, and then I just told myself that I needed to start getting into better shape. So I started with at home workouts because I was too embarrassed to go to the gym by myself. Uh, and I was actually living up in Valdosta, Georgia at that time. And this was so I had the surgeries in 2012. I did like the at home workouts for probably majority of 2013. Like I would do like the P90X and like the beach body stuff. And in 2014, my previous husband at the time got deployed. He was in the Air Force, and I moved back home. And we didn't have a very good relationship at that time. We were already talking about getting divorced and stuff. So I was going to move home anyways. I moved home January of 2014. I Maybe it was 2015. I don't remember. But I started CrossFit, and I did CrossFit until probably 2017. I ended up losing a bunch of weight. I would sit around the 150s, but I still had a very high body fat percentage. Um, and then in 2015, I went to fire school to become a firefighter. Uh, there, I met my husband now. We were both in relationships when we met in in fire school, and then at the end of at the end of 2015, both we ended up actually both breaking up in our relationships that we were in, and he actually just kind of reached out to me, and we just started talking, and he invited me to go to the gym one day. And I was like, well, I'm not really like a real gym kind of person. Like I like my group settings. I like when people kind of tell me what to do, and I like the high intensity and the stuff of CrossFit. And I was like, whatever, like I'll go. You just have to tell me what to do. So we ended up training together for almost a whole year. We just became best friends. We'd go train at LA Fitness because he was bougie and that was the only one he went to. And we'd go out for sushi afterwards, probably just about every time. And we just became best friends. And then a year later, we decided that we would just commit to just one another. And then it just kind of ballparked after that. One day we were just training and he's like, what, I think you do really well if in a bodybuilding competition if you wanted to do it. And before I had met him, like before I started CrossFit, Dana Lynn Bailey was like body goals. So, and I didn't know the whole bodybuilding world or anything. And then I realized after he had said that I do well in bodybuilding that she was actually a bodybuilder. So I started looking into it a little bit more, doing a bit more research about the divisions. And wellness wasn't a thing. And women's bodybuilding, as we know, wasn't a big thing either. And I was like, well, bikini, I'm way too big for that. Figure, heels are involved, so I'm out. And I said, like, well, women's physique, I can, I get to do my own thing. I get to show off my biceps. I'm like, why wouldn't I do that? There's just a bit more freedom into it. So in the beginning of 2017, uh, we both signed up with our first coaches. It wasn't his first coach because he's been competing for a while, but we signed up with a couple to prep for our very first show. And I did my very first show in September of 2017 down in Hollywood, Florida. And I just fell in love with the stage. I fell in love with the sport, and I've just been doing it since. I've done um, two regional shows, I guess. I did that one. I ended up taking all of 2018 off because we were focusing on him and his competition, and I had started paramedic school. So I took all of 2018 off, and in 2019, last year, I competed at the Daytona Beach Classic here. Then I told my coach I want to do nationals. I mean, that was it, nationals last year was my third show ever, and he was like, "Well, yeah, we can try, see where we stand." And I busted my ass for the 7 weeks in between Daytona and nationals in Miami. And we stepped on that national stage, and I had 18 girls in my class, and I placed fourth. So then I qualified again for this year. So we took a whole entire year and just trained and put on the size that we needed. And last year at the Olympia, when they announced that they were bringing back women's bodybuilding, I told my coach next year at nationals, I want to compete in women's bodybuilding because Sandy had told me in 2019, one of my critiques was I was too lean for women's physique division. And she told me I was borderline too big, especially in my legs. So I would have had to back off of training. I wouldn't have been able to get as lean as I did come in. So I was just like, well, you outgrow a division, you outgrow a division. So I'm just going to step up. I'm nowhere near those women that are about to step on stage tomorrow at the 2020 Olympia, but it's just something to continue to work towards. I get to continue to train the way that I want to. I get more food, hopefully, and yeah, it's just fun.
One thing that I always find so surprising is if anyone ever gets told you're too big for physique, it's like, how big does a person have to be there? Because physique, I mean, you're already like massive for physique, but that's awesome. But I do got to ask for you and your husband, have you ever prepped at the same time?
Yes,
Oh
actually,
God.
we actually kind of almost prefer
Oh.
to prep at the same time because then like we're both like, I don't want to deal with anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. Like we'll just sit next to one another, and that's enough, so
But you gotta have one
um
person that has more than one brain cell working so that they like know like, hey, when the stove goes, you gotta like shut it off and stuff like that. Or do you just basically have like a friend that needs to come over and be like, hey, you need to like do all of our stuff for us because we're just gonna be,
yeah,
just zombies basically.
usually it's the family. So in 2018 we did separate, or we did prep separately, because I did not prep and he did, because he did Teen Universe in New Jersey that year. And it was just like, I don't know, it was one of the hardest things that we had ever done, not with one of us prepping and one of us not. And then in 2019 we prepped for Daytona Beach Classic together, and that was good. But the 7 weeks between Daytona and Nationals, when I was prepping and he wasn't, it was a bumpy, bumpy road. And it's just because it's because one person is doesn't really have any of those brain cells functioning, and the other person is, you know, completely functioning. So it kind of does mess with you a little bit, but it was a growing experience. It was a learning experience. So this year, he did not do any shows. So, because he's trying to bump up to bodybuilding, because he's a classic physique competitor. And so he is also started paramedic school. So he took this whole year off so he could focus on school, and so he could help me focus on achieving my pro card. And it was probably the best thing that we could have done. And I appreciate him more than he'll probably ever know. And I honestly couldn't have done anything, and I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't have achieved my IFBB pro status without him, for sure.
Well, and that's so important too, because so many people don't understand that, just having that support is really life or death for so many competitors. I mean, we've heard plenty of stories on here of people who might not have the support that they need, and it just really helps damper their progress and it really makes it even more difficult. So, I mean, the easier that you can make bodybuilding, the better when it comes to, the outside factors. I mean, you're not going to be able to make your diet easier. You're not going to be able to make, the basic stuff easier. But when you were getting started, did you have any myths or misconceptions about bodybuilding? Because I mean, that's one thing. Like you said, you weren't that familiar with it. Was it something that you were just so foreign with that you thought that stuff? I mean, or was there anything that you were sort of concerned about before getting into the support?
Um, I mean, no, not really, because like uh he was there with me. Like I said, he was the one who introduced it to me. So if I really had any questions, like, he would just say no, that that's not right. And it's, there's those people out there who I actually got told, before I found my coach now, I was told by my previous coach that I would not get anywhere in the sport without taking some very harsh drugs, some very harsh things that women should not take. And he wasn't talking Anavar, Winstrol,
Yep.
Clen. He was talking, Test, Tren, and it's just like that's not stuff that I'm willing to take. So I dropped him, found my coach I have now, and I am truly blessed that I had found him. He's just a wizard. Nelson Jones is my coach now, and I've been with him since I went to him 8 weeks out from Daytona of last year. So since like June or July. So coming up on a year and a half, close to 2 years. And it's definitely nice having a coach that I can stick with and stay with, because now he knows my body. We know, when things go wrong, where to start at and what to do. And like, we learned that my body doesn't do well with carbs, especially the closer I get to a show. We don't carb load for shows because I just get watery. So we fat load instead. I started my prep this year at 22 weeks out, and 22 weeks out, he took away my cheat meals. I did not get I didn't get a single cheat meal the entire 22 weeks, no refeeds. Had some food bumps here and there, but nothing big. And at 10 to 12 weeks out, I don't remember specifically, he took all of my carbs away. And while it sounds crappy, and the first week and a half is hard, my body functions so well on the higher fat diet. the closer I get to a show. The clarity in my brain, the energy spikes. It's insane. I don't know how it works because now, like that, I'm not competing and I'm not getting ready for a show. It's just like on my no carb days, I'm dying, and I just want all the carbs. But it does for some reason it works, and
Jeez.
it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I could not imagine 22 weeks without a cheat meal because that's just good God. What these competitors have to put themselves through makes this sport even more impressive than I would have ever thought. But I love to talk genetics on this podcast too because so many people, I mean, everyone's on social media. Oh my God, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. People just don't understand that you can only be the best version of yourself. I don't know how many people have to shake down and just be like, you don't know how they got to that look. You don't know. Well, actually going back, so when you were talking about all the drugs and stuff, I'm gonna send you a podcast as soon as I'm done with you that I did with Stephanie Flesher, who's like a pretty big bodybuilder, and she was just talking about all the stuff that she did, and it was mind opening. Where she did like everything at once, like it was bad. Where it was like, oh my God, like what's going on? But she's yeah, and her story is really something. So I'll send you that. But going back to like the genetics, I mean, everyone when they first get started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that they have to drag, basically begging and crying and pleading with them and to try to get them to catch up. I mean, I'll give you mine first. I'm my back just because I had jobs all throughout college of working in warehouses where you either got a really nice back, you quit. I was basically lifting and loading stuff into trucks and then being 6'3", my lower body, don't even get me started. You said that you had a really nice lower body, and I was like, screw her. Because, like, my lower body, I could inject pure muscle into my legs, and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, I'm just one of those people where, don't even get me started on calves, too. That's the number one genetic thing where it's like, I see someone with nice calves, and I was like, okay, they've never had to work them a day in their life. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started, really taking things seriously?
um, so my quads and my biceps, they grow like weeds. Like, um, I stopped training my arms sometime early in the year. And I get asked all the time. I don't understand, but I get asked all the time, "What do you do for arms?" And I'm like, "I don't train my arms at all. Like I don't. I throw in like a superset here and there and I'll do like, 20 reps, but it's just like I do not have an arm day. I don't. I don't go heavy on arms. I do high reps and my quads grow like crazy. I don't know if that's from the weightlifting in high school, just building them up, but my weak parts are my entire posterior chain. So my back, my hamstrings, and my calves. I have the worst calves, but like my hamstrings do not grow as fast as my quads do. So I really have to push those harder. And my back, I think, I don't know, like I think it might be because I do very well if I can see my muscles, if I can see them moving, if I can see them working, and it kind of helps me connect to them a little bit better. So obviously, I have a hard time not being able to see my back. And then, but this past off season, we started hitting my back twice a week, and it really helped pick up the lagging body parts. So I just have to train them double.
Now, normally, and I was going to ask you about your arms because that is a question that I ask some of the guests that have nice arms, but you already answered that for us. But you are the first bodybuilder that I've had on that says that they don't train arms. Now, normally, like if we have like a figure or bikini girl, they're like, yeah, I don't train arms because I don't want them to get them too big. You are the first bodybuilder that we've had on that says that they don't train arms. So that's saying something, everyone. If you're a bodybuilder, not just a bikini competitor, not just a figure competitor, but yeah, that's I mean, hey, you'd be the perfect gym bro if you just wanted to be because like just you would just wear arms all day because that's the I mean that's what guys we communicate. I mean, your husband knows that better than anyone else. I mean, that's how we communicate with each other in the gym. I mean, it's just looking at each other's arms and stuff. So, yeah, that's insane. And that's why I love asking that question because it just shows, so many body parts are different. I mean, we've had people that yeah, they have nice abs or they have great chest or their back just really take I mean, it just depends on the individual, but sort of going off that, I mean, we talked about this before, but one of the biggest myths and stereotypes that I love to bust on this podcast, and it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, is that so many women have that fear that if they walk into the gym and they do one curl, they're gonna put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. First of all, I wish I had that type of self confidence because I would be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company by now, and who knows where I'd be at right now. Also, I would spend my entire life savings to train with you then because you have found the secret that, everyone is looking for. You'd probably be the first ever trillionaire, but did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
Yeah, no, I didn't really have that kind of a fear. I just when I did first start training with my husband, he obviously trained arms, and his favorite body part to train is obviously chest, like most men. And so I hated those 2 workout like, those 2 body groups. And I think it was just because I sucked at them so much. I mean, I benched in high school, but it was just I didn't like the way that I felt when I was doing them. And I did not like, uh, everybody loves the pump and the burn, and I didn't like it in my arms. I didn't wanna do it, and I was here and there, like, there were times where it was like, "Oh, I feel like my arms are too big." And it was just I did become a little bit self-conscious about them. And he would just kind of tell me like, you need to calm down because that's for one, you're supposed to have decent sized arms for your division. And two, they're not as big as you think they are. And honestly, the only reason I stopped training arms last year was because my shoulders were lagging compared to my arms. They don't grow as quickly as my arms do. So then they look even smaller than they really are. So I tried to take this year to focus on building up my shoulders more so than my biceps and my triceps. And now that they've caught up, I'm starting to put bis and tris back in.
Okay, good, good. I was gonna say, I was like, okay, I was like, just for the genetic purposes, I was like, if you're that blessed, you got it, you got it, you got it. At least, I mean, that's like slapping God in the face and just being like, hey, you're giving me what you no. But so for bench for me, that was actually one of my least favorite because I have incredibly long arms because I'm tall. So going up and down, that is a never ending just. Oh my!
Yeah.
I had another friend who he was a little bit shorter and he was a little bit bigger in the stomach area. So literally, he would only have to go down, about a third of what I would have to do. And I was like, dude, screw you, because he's putting up bigger numbers than me. And I was like, I could if I was like, if only I could. Yeah, but that's a whole different tangent that I don't want to get into. But one thing that I think impacts women so much more positively than men, and we've talked about this, for every woman that I have on the podcast, is just that confidence boost that working out gives you. I mean, we have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of ways that it's helped out women. Either it's just I think it's that one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact every single aspect of your life is that confidence boost. How have you taken that confidence boost that working out's given you and used it to impact your life in a positive way?
I more so try to bring out my confidence to help other women be confident in the gym. And I use my transformations that I've had to try to kind of motivate people. I try to be open, I try to be as honest as possible. I really try not to hide anything. Um, I don't even use filters anymore because it's like it gives women a false sense of accomplishment, or it even gives some women a false sense of security, and they feel so insecure about themselves when they see these other women on social media, and they think that you know these looks are accomplishable, and it's just because it's a filter. I still have some confidence issues. I've struggled with body confidence and body dysmorphia my entire life. I actually am just now starting to kind of get out of my post show blues. And now that I'm gaining back body fat, and but I'm comfortable. I'm not miserable. I get to go and have a date night once a week with my husband again. And it just, life is just better, when you have a little bit of fat on you, and that's okay. Uh, so that's kind of what I try to do. Um, but I also don't hide when I still have those insecurities. I actually try to make videos and post about them when they come about, so that way more women can be more confident in their own insecurities.
Yeah, that is so great and so important because yeah, I have a lot of female friends too who they suffer through that too, where it's just like they see all these unrealistic pictures of like these swimsuit models and stuff, and then they're like, I want to look like that. And I was like, well, you're gonna need a really good editor. You're gonna need a really good like you're gonna need a really good first of all photographer, and you're gonna yeah. So it's just And I even showed one. There's some video that someone made which was so great where they posted about like they hired a real photographer just to show everyone that like how it can be done. And they were, an average looking body type, and they made it look like they're like a supermodel basically through like all the editing and so yeah, it goes a lot into that as well. But I love to talk about, because like you said, you went from one extreme of being overweight to, being where you're at right now. What was that adjustment like mentally? Because this is so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport, and people do not understand that, because you only see the physical changes where someone will come up to you and say, "Hey, Kayla, you look amazing. Like, wow, you've really changed." They'll never be able to know what it was like inside to change, though. And plus, I mean, the mind is so much harder to get to adapt to changes than it is the physical part. But what has this mental journey been like for you?
It's been a rough one for sure. When I first started dieting and like doing my at home workouts and doing CrossFit, I had a binge eating disorder. So, at night, it was usually at night, I just kind of get hungry. I could sit down and I could eat an entire jar of almond butter or peanut butter, or I would just eat whatever I could find. Um, so I've come a very, very long way. Even throughout my entire prep for my first show, I was binging on, proteins or just little no calorie things that I could find, or it got as bad as, binging on gummy vitamins because I just was mentally not there. And a lot of people tell you like if you're binging during a prep, you don't need to be stepping on stage, and I was able to kind of control it to where I was presentable on stage, but I could have been better. And if I wouldn't have been binging, I wouldn't have had to do 2 hours of cardio twice a day. So my prep would have probably been a little bit better. I probably wouldn't have as bad of metabolic damage as I am trying to fix now, um, or I've been trying to fix since that first show. Uh, but then just as the years went on, I just got mentally stronger. And it's just, I kind of tell myself, well, is this short term satisfaction, more important than your end goal? So just kind of having little pep talks. I've noticed that journaling has helped out a lot with my mental aspect of it. And just also just talking about it instead of hiding it. At first, I didn't even want my husband to know, and then I was like, well, you know what? Like, I'm going to be with this man for the rest of my life. I have to be honest with him. I can't just be a closet eater forever. So, even now,
Have
like
them
if
catch
I'm,
you in the closet one night with like peanut butter all over your mouth and stuff. It's like, This is not what it looks like. Trust me."
yeah, exactly, exactly. And like, that's kind of how it was like when we first started that, because I'd go over to his house and just be hanging out, or I'd spend the night. He'd be in the shower and I'd be like picking out protein from the refrigerator, and oh, it's just protein, it's not bad, like it's fine. And but it's not. And so yeah, so like now I talk to him. I tell him like, oh, I'm really craving this or I'm really craving that, and he'll tell me to go like drink a cup of water or something and then think about it, and or just tell me, well, you've come this far, you only have a little bit further to go, like especially when we were getting closer to the show. And he's like, you have to think about it. He's like, you're going for your pro card, and that is more important than giving into this craving that you have right now. So, and then I've gotten so many close friends throughout the sport as well. I know I can go to my coach if something happens, or if I am craving, like I'll ask him for advice, or I'll just tell him, and he'll help me and give me little stuff like to do to distract my mind, whether it's listen to podcasts or read some articles or just go for a walk, just do something. Uh, but and then this past year, one of my old teammates, her and I have become uh closer than I could have ever even imagined. And her her husband and we all three just competed at nationals this past year, and like now I talk to her every single day. And this whole reversing from this last show has been so much easier this year because I have someone else that I can go to and someone else that I can talk to who understands it. Because while my husband does understand, he doesn't understand from a woman's point of view, and she does. And I can't, I'm so blessed that I have her in my life, and I'm so blessed that I was able to meet her. And just that, I've gotten such a great friend out of her. And it's caused this reverse to go a lot better than last year's reverse, because last year uh I just I went right back to work, and I didn't really have I mean, I had my husband, but you know he also is, well, babe, he's like, you just did so well, like it's not going to kill you, you're going to be fine, but you know try not to, do it again. And so having him there this year and having her, I didn't binge like I did last year. I've been able to control myself very well. And, you know, putting on the extra weight hasn't bothered me as much as it did last year either.
And that's just so great. And I was about to freak out when you said you did 4 hours of cardio, because cardio is my number one pet peeve. I mean, I hate it more than life
Yeah.
itself. I'm one of those people where, just because for my baseball days, that's all we did for pitching, was that we ran, just to try to strengthen the legs. And knowing me and my never ending quest to gain muscle on my legs, it's not going to work. But especially during this pandemic, we have a treadmill downstairs, and so I've been going on that. But 4 hours of cardio, how are you able to even survive? Because I've done like 80-minute cardio sessions where I'll just walk, like 7 or 8 miles, but still 4 hours. How are you doing that?
It was 2 hours fasted, 2 hours post. I was also still doing CrossFit at the time. So I would do 2 hours fasted. I would do an hour of CrossFit at 9 a.m. Uh, then I would go to the gym with my husband when he would get off of work. But we trained for about an hour and a half, and then we would both have to do our 2 hours of cardio afterwards.
So for anyone out there who's wondering what the definition of a psychopath is, we got the example here in the last 5. That is wow. That is just what was your nutrition like even then? Because I mean, when you're doing that much cardio, you would probably have to eat what, like 10,000 calories a day just to even like keep weight.
No, it was nothing, and I think that that was why I ended up binging so much throughout the prep itself, and why I rebounded so poorly after that show, because all I wanted to do afterwards was eat, and that was it. And he was the same way. And our don't get me wrong, like our first coaches, they were good coaches, but it was just, I don't know, like my coach, I was with the wife, and she did more bikini and figure girls. I was her only women's physique girl. So even then, like, even when I left her, she's like, I completely understand. She's like, I think that you should go to somebody who, does specialize better in women's physique competitors. And it was so, I mean, it was rough, and it was my first show, and I did have a lot of body fat to lose, and she did get me in very well. Like I looked very good, and I was very lean even for the binging that I was doing, and I was 100% natural. And it was, she was my first coach. She helped me on this long journey that I've been on, and I appreciate her and what she did for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you were talking about, sleep too, and that is the most important thing when it comes to recovery. That is probably the most important thing in this lifestyle in general. I mean, and especially when you're in the health and fitness, I mean, it becomes 10 times more important. And when you're talking about like wanting to eat extra things, this damn melatonin where it's got to be that flavored stuff. I've had nights too where even after I take one of them, I was like, okay, just take the whole damn bottle because I'm just so hungry and it tastes so good. But how have you been able to, deal with this sleep wise? Because I mean, like I said, being a bodybuilder, I mean, sleep is 10 times more important. And I always say there's almost no better feeling on the planet than after a really long, hard workout to get that proper amount of sleep and you wake up feeling like a superhero. I mean, how have you tried to get that sleep schedule down? Because so many people struggle with that too, especially during preps where your body just isn't really trying. It's very hard to get that right amount of sleep when your body is that drained.
Yeah. Well, last year, my coach probably wanted to kill me the entire time, because my entire prep, I was in paramedic school. So, uh, the last few weeks of prep, I was doing clinicals, and they were 12-hour clinicals from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then I tried to do those on my shift days so that way I could take off of work. And but some days I had to go back into work, and as a firefighter, some nights you don't get to sleep. It happens. And I was at our busiest station at the time. So there was nights where I was getting 4 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep. I honestly don't know how I did it last year. We stopped. I finished with my clinicals, I think, about a week or two out from NPC nationals, and I was dead. I would take naps in the back of the ambulance, and it was so hard, but I would drag myself out of bed to do my fasted cardio. And my husband would help me get up, push me, turn over, go back to sleep. And and then but it was just, I knew what I had to do in order to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. Then this year, completely different story. I told myself, you need to sleep because sleep is going to help you. I started getting on a good sleep schedule during my off season. I did see the how, it did assist with my growth. And now I am a grandma and I am 7:30. I'm like, oh my God, I am tired. I've got my husband wanting to go to bed at 8 o'clock now. We used to be, 10:30 kind of people. Now it's 7:30, 8 o'clock. And we're like, oh God, I'm like, I got to go home because my watch just told me that it's time for bed. And so I do. Now I track my sleep. So I try to at least to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night because I don't like to see the little red bars on the next day when I wake up and it tells me that I didn't get a good amount of sleep. Um, I started listening to this podcast called The Excellence Cartel, and those three guys got me into monitoring my heart rate variability because that also turns in turn like helps it helps you like figure out where your recovery is at, how well you're recovering. And so I started monitoring that as well. And it's just monitoring all these variables, you realize how important your sleep is. And I already have so many hormonal issues that I'm trying to fix that if I would just honestly fix my sleep, it would help out that much more. So there's stuff that you can control and stuff that you can't control. And this year I told myself that I really need to focus on my controllables, and sleep was one of them. And it was just a high priority this year.
So going to bed at 7:30, when are you getting up then? Oh my god. Okay, so I'm gonna admit something. I was asleep at 3:30 last night. I just fallen asleep. I am a huge night owl. Where I mean, I used to work nights. Where with coronavirus, I don't have a job anymore right now. But I was, I always found that fascinating. Where I was going to bed by the time most of these people were getting up. So yeah, that's just. And I even told her that. So she was like, "When can we do this podcast?" Because I had to delay because we had snow and I had the power outage. And she's like, "You want to do it early in the morning?" And literally anytime a guest says, I was like, yeah, about that. I need my beauty sleep. So I was like, I'm getting up at like 11. So yeah, we anytime after that, but no. So yeah, I just love asking that sleep question. But now we get to my favorite topic because I had never guessed that this was the scenario until I got started with this podcast. I mean, I was a little bit familiar with it because I had friends that were bodybuilding, but I would have never guessed in a million years that for so many of these guests, posing is the hardest thing for them. Would have never guessed it in a million years that it's harder than your nutrition, it's harder than your working out. I mean, I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver, you can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Um, well, at first, I was a terrible. I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm the best poser, but it was like it was just so uncomfortable, and I thought that I looked decent. Now I go back and I look at pictures, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was terrible. Uh, and even my very first show, they told me like your quarter turns suck. Um, but when you got into your mandatory poses, you just something changed and you just lit up. So I started to, I mean, how hard are quarter turns? So I really tried to start focusing on those. And last year I did have a posing coach from the gym. This year was kind of hard just because of COVID. And she's the lady that I was working with last year. She's not old, but she is older, and she does take care of her mom and stuff like that. So with coronavirus, it was hard to work with her. Um, but posing is hard. It's hard, and it's not as like you don't get the reward like you do from cardio or from strength training. You don't get those endorphins. You don't get those feel good hormones that come out. You're just exhausted afterwards. You're just tired. You're cramping, or like you don't feel right, and you know that something's wrong, but you don't know how to fix it. And you know, so it's something that I definitely need to do more often. And I tell myself that I need to start doing it in the off season, but then I look at myself in the off season and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm so fat. I don't want to do it because I don't look good." But that is a goal for this year, is to focus more on posing. And but yeah, it is. It's so hard. Like it's exhausting in the mornings, especially the closer you get to a show. It's like I don't want to get up and put my suit on and take pictures. I don't, you know, but it I do what I have to do. My coach will tweak here and there where he has to. Actually, after prejudging this year, because the women had to go do a 2-day show this year, and after prejudging, I had ended up rinsing the night before finals. And my coach and I were running through my poses the morning of finals before I went and got my other tan. And I hit my back lat spread, and we did a tweak. And he's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "You just got like 2 extra inches on your back." He's like, "Do that on stage tonight." He's like, "Because that is so much better than any back lat spread I have ever seen you do." And it is, it's just an ever evolving and ever, changing thing. You can never be perfect at it. So you just have to keep practicing.
What was one pose that came really easy for you, and what was one pose that took you, forever to learn?
I don't think any of them really came easy to me. um, because it's just so much that you have to think about.
Well,
You have
even
to
well,
think
even
about.
people, well, even people like if you're doing like a front double bicep, people just think that you just have to flex your arms. No, you got to flex your legs. You got to flex everything of your body's got to be synced in. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people just struggle to understand.
I mean, your big toes have to be in the right spot. It's like the smallest up and downward of your elbow, whether your elbows are forward or backwards, your lats will come out or they won't. It's you have to transitions. Transitions are probably the hardest because you have to transition and keep everything together and not look like you're out of breath, and then get into your next pose perfectly. And you have to figure out which angle works, which angle makes you look smaller than you really are, or which angle makes you look bigger than you really are. It's like the closer your legs are together, the bigger your legs look because your adductors are closer together. But the more that you twist in a side pose, the tinier your waist looks. And it's it it's all about angles. It's all about, you know, foot placement, and it's just start at the ground, work your way up. It's just because it's a front double bicep doesn't mean that it's only biceps. Just because it's a side tricep doesn't mean it's just a side tricep.
Yeah, it's like that, and yeah, the opposing is a whole topic that I mean we could do an entire podcast on. But going into, I mean, the real elephant in the room, the coronavirus, because it's been something that has impacted our lives in more ways than we could have ever imagined. I mean, you especially being in Florida, where I mean that was where I think it really hit hard early. How have you been dealing with this pandemic, especially being that I mean, like you're a competitor too, so it must be 10 times as hard because we've had some really bad horror stories on this podcast of people who have they've been prepping since January of last year and they're still doing it because everything just got delayed back so far. But what has your experience been like during this whole pandemic, especially being that I mean you were a paramedic, or you're in paramedic school before, and that you probably have had a lot to do with that now. But what has this all been like for you?
Yeah. I actually I lucked out a lot during this pandemic. We don't live in like Miami or anything like that. So that was one of the hardest hit areas. One of the county just beneath us, they were very hard hit in Broward County. Like they got shut down. And I mean we did too, but not as badly. Um it was easier for me because I have a gym at work. So I got to go to work every third day, and uh, I get to train at work. It might get interrupted for a call or something, but right now, this past year, actually, I've been at one of our slower stations. So a busy day is maybe 6 calls in 24 hours, maybe. So versus, our downtown station will run 21 to 26 calls, total in the 24-hour period. So I did look out with that, and I was truly blessed that I was able to have access to a gym. I did end up getting one of the gym owners did allow me to purchase a key to be able to go to the gym and, you know, just kind of do my own thing. It was just me and my husband, and we just had to clean up after ourselves, treat the gym like our home. And then I have cardio equipment at home because I have to do fasted cardio all the time, and I don't want to have to drive all the way to a gym. But the gym owner, he cares a lot about people and about the people in the town, and it's a small gym. It's a personally owned gym. He's not a big franchise business. Uh, you know, we told him that we would pay him what we needed to pay him to be able to have access. And because not so much just because we are competitors and because this is, what we love to do, because everybody, likes to go to the gym, but it was important for us because we use it as our mental break, and it just helps us stay sane.
I was gonna say when these gyms close, I was like, God, these are the bodybuilders without their crack, basically. I mean, it's like what's gonna happen? Which we are closed down now again too, until we've been closed down for like the last 3 weeks. So yeah, it's been.
And at first, like, it wasn't the first few weeks, he didn't let us. He was just like, no, like, let's just see how this goes. And we were going crazy. Like, we were trying to find stuff, we were trying to find gym equipment, everything was sold out. People were selling gym equipment for 3 times the price that you can get it at the store, and it's like, that's robbery right there. Like, geez, because they knew how bad people were hurting and how badly people wanted to continue to work out. So we bought some bands, we bought, some dumbbells, what we could, but it wasn't enough. And we were going to go to our respective departments to train while we weren't at work, because you know we were allowed to go to the stations that we were at, because he works for a fire department, one of the cities right next to the city I worked for. So even though we weren't allowed to be at each other's fire departments, we could go to our own and just train there. And that was going to be our thing. We were just going to drive 30, 45 minutes every day to go train separately and do what we had to do to make it work. This is.
Oh yeah, it's some, but I have two questions about being a firefighter then, because I see those fire poles that they have you do. What is the purpose of those things? Do they find that it's just a quicker way to get down between floors or stuff like that, or why is like because I see that and I was like, why do they have a stripper pole there? Like that's the first thing that I associate with like when I was like, what is the purpose of that? So is it just because it's quicker to go down between floors then?
Yeah, so that's initially what they were designed for, just for access to the trucks a lot quicker than having to go to the stairs and walk down the stairs, potentially, I guess maybe fall down the stairs. I don't know. I don't have fire poles at my department. We have single story fire stations. Um, one out of the 5 stations in my husband's department does have a fire pole, but I don't know if they use it or not. Do you guys use it? I don't think. Yeah, I don't even think they're allowed to use it. So some departments have them, some departments don't. Some departments have them just for look. I think slides would be better,
Oh
to
yeah.
be honest.
I mean, I've always said if I ever got like a 3-story house, I would build one of those poles just to, like go down. Just I've always wanted to do that. Like if something really just oh my god, I got to get down there and This is a safety one though for fire because we're in the holiday season and a lot of people do a lot of stupid stuff during the holiday season when it comes to. I mean, I even look at old photos of those old Christmas trees that they had where they actually had lit candles on them, and I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like that is a fire hazard waiting to happen. But what is one thing that people can do to help prevent fires, especially during this time of the year?
Just water their tree. Don't leave it on all night, especially if you're not going to water it. Everybody asks me all the time, they're like, "Do you have a real tree?" And I'm like, "No." Like, I can barely, the only reason I can remember to give my cats water is because they tell me. Like, they'll scream at me if their water and food bowls are empty. I'm not going to be able to remember to water a tree. And those things go up like nothing if they're dry. So it's terrifying. It'll go up in under a minute, and that thing will burn quick. And the way that homes are built these days, homes burn even quicker. I mean, not all of them. Some of the fire standards have gotten better, um, but just furniture in general, it's just like it'll catch your couch. Your couch will burn quick. Your mattress will burn quick. I don't do I don't do real Christmas trees. I can't.
Oh, no, we
But
haven't either. We've done fake ones for basically as long as I can remember. Maybe like when I was super young, we had a few real ones, but yeah. So my Christmas story is that my grandpa, when my mom was, super young, he was a big cigar smoker, and one time he blew out the match, but he didn't shake it off or anything like that. So he put it in the trash can and then put it out in the garage. Next thing you know, like a couple of the Christmas presents were burned because the thing started to spread. So now my mom, ever since we were kids, she ingrained in us that anytime we're done with a match, we have to put it underwater just to make sure that it's out 100%. But two of the questions that I love to ask before we wrap things up were, I mean, if someone were to come up to you and say, Kayla, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
oh, that's a good question. I don't even know. Um, yeah, I kind of like I do, but I don't wish that people wouldn't judge us the way that they do. It does suck. It's like my husband and I will go out and he'll be like, "Do you see these people? Like they're just staring at us." And I don't pay attention to it. I'm just like, "Whatever, like it is what it is. Like if they have a problem with me, they can come say something to me." But I just wish we weren't as judged as hard. But I wish that bodybuilding could like I wish more people knew about it. I wish more people liked it. Like I do like that it's kind of our own little thing, and it's not so mainstream and so monetized and so controlled. But I also just wish that more people could understand it and understand, why we do it, why we love it so much.
Ergo why I started this podcast, everyone out there, just to
Yes.
just to get that, which is, yeah, because with the amount of hard work that these people go into, I mean, they're training harder than 90% of the athletes out there. I mean, I can tell you as a baseball player, I train probably about 1/10 of what bodybuilders go through when it comes to working out and stuff. I mean, we didn't even need to have a diet for bait. So yeah, it's just all that hard work and dedication. Yeah, I really do think, yeah, it should be a little bit more mainstream. And yeah, and I feel for you when it comes to going out because I used to be a lot bigger than I am now, just because with this podcast and with everything else in my life, I only am able to work out, like 4 times a week, and I'm not training to be so big because it honestly got to a point where my heart was actually suffering. I didn't take any like PEDs or anything like that, but like I was getting too big where like I had trouble breathing at night and stuff with sleep apnea. So literally, it got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to tone it down a little bit then, because like I was waking up like gasping for air and stuff like at night. So, but yeah, it's just yeah, it's if anyone could just be a little bit more upfront about that and just appreciate it more. But now lastly, if we were to talk to you a year from today, now again, if we were to have talked a year ago and you were to have predicted a global pandemic and everything like that, I would have bet my entire life savings against it. So it goes to show that we have no knowledge of what the future is going to entail, because who knows, we could be talking a year from today and you could hear gunshots in the background, you could see a big fire blooming in the background. Who knows where the world's going to be at a year from today? But in an ideal world, where would you like to be at a year from today when it comes to your bodybuilding, when it comes to your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved?
Um, so a year from now, we do plan on taking the whole year off. I don't think we plan on doing a pro show, my first pro show until 2022. I do have some size that I want to put on in certain areas, more so than others, but I do need to put on more size all around. This year, we are focusing on my husband. So we're focusing on getting him qualified for a national show and getting him onto a national stage again and having him hopefully obtain his pro card. in this year. Um, I have put myself through the ringer with school the past 2 years, so I don't know if I'm going to be taking any college courses this year. I might take a few officer classes so I can start stepping up the ranks within my fire department. And I'm actually kind of hoping that they do a promotional exam soon because I would like to take the driver engineer exam to take that next step within the department. And I want to start helping people on their fitness journeys. I do want to start coaching. I'm going to start with some lifestyle clients because I'm not to the point yet where I feel like I could take on competitors, especially enhanced or advanced competitors. And so I'd like to start small. I'm actually starting with my family, so I'm doing them for free, obviously. So I have my oldest sister, my little brother, his fiance, and his best friend. I have all on diet plans, and we're trying to get them in shape. And we have a wedding a year for my little brother and his fiance. So that's our goal. So I'm hoping to get everybody in shape by then, and just kind of continue to learn, the aspects of dieting and nutrition and competing and becoming, the best and that I can be, and just continuing to enhance my knowledge.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's great that you're taking that year to sort of help out your husband. You guys kind of rotating that because I think that is healthy too. Because so many people, they think that their career should only last a couple of years. Really, just the way that I think that they compete, where it's just like I want to do as many shows as possible and all that. And it's like you're not going to be in this sport for very long then because your body's just not meant for that. But that's so great. But lastly, I had to ask, so you have a big tattoo all throughout your shoulder on this side, all the way down your arm. What is that shoulder? What does that mean? What is the significance behind that? Because I'm always fascinated by people and their tattoos and what they mean.
So this is one of five. This one was done in three sections, but I have five of them. Um, I have one here on my collarbone, and it says family, and we all have that one, and it's just kind of our way of being connected. Uh, I have one on my thigh, and it's an elephant, and that's because I love the strength in what the elephant embodies. So I put that on the strongest part of my body to kind of help me continue to move forward in life. I have one on my foot. It's just a infinity symbol, and it says little sis on it. So me and my two other sisters have the same tattoo, and it says big sis, middle sis, little sis. I have one on my shoulder back there. Uh, it's a cow, and it's eating a sunflower. It's actually a zombie cow eating a sunflower, and underneath it says "Love you more." And I got that one for my mom. My mom passed away in 2015 from cancer, and The Walking Dead was her favorite.
Oh, I was gonna say if you got
Cow.
a zombie cow because of your mom died, I was like, okay, what? But no,
Yeah.
yeah, so
So
yeah.
she loved The Walking Dead. She was obsessed with cows. Sunflowers were her favorite flower, and she always used to say "Love you more." And then I got the Alice in Wonderland tattoo. So this is
Oh,
all
oh, I see
Alice
that
in
now. Yeah.
Wonderland. And I just like the story behind Alice and how she's kind of lost and she falls down this rabbit hole and she meets all these wonderful people who try to give her advice, try to help her get where she wants to go, but she doesn't listen to them and she does what she wants anyways. And at the end of the day, she has to pay the consequences for all of the decisions that she makes, whether they're good or bad. And I just felt like I connected with Alice a lot, and it's just always been my favorite movie. So I put it on my body.
I'm gonna have to do a spoiler alert for that because I've never seen that movie, so she spoiled the entire thing for me. But I'll still
Oh,
I haven't seen it yet, but no, it's one of those where I've always been fascinated with. But yeah, that is just so great. And again, Kayla, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey with us. And we honestly do wish you nothing but the best. And honestly, I mean, it was so great to have you on and share your story. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap things up?
no, just thank you so much again for having me. If anybody wants to, they can follow me on Instagram. It's Queen B underscore IFBB underscore pro. And Kayla Ray Bruce is the name as well. But other than that, no, I appreciate you having me on, and thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, everyone go and give her a follow down below. So I'm training arms today. So could you give us a front double by? I need some
Yeah.
motivation just to train. Good God, just hold that for a second. That's just absolutely ridiculous, everyone. We need to all go and train arms now. This is just insane. She was right when she said she doesn't train arms anymore. But again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.